Okay, today I'm going to make a tutorial on how to tell how wide things are in websites, and I'm mainly doing this for one of my designers who's a graphic designer. He does not know about code. I do not need him to know about code. I will never ask him to learn code because I want him to do what he's really, really good at, and I want to get coders to do what they're really good at and not do any designing. Um, but one thing he sort of asked me is how wide is a page? And obviously, I've given him our responsive breakpoints to tell him these are the different widths depending on the device. But he still won't really understand exactly what he means. So I'm going to kind of talk him through it. So the way I investigate a page is to right click and then click on inspect element. This is in Firefox. In Chrome, it would be inspect or something, and other browsers it has the option as well. So you can see that this is what our page looks like in terms of code. You can open and close them. There's a lot more to it than just this bit you're seeing, but that's all we need for now. So I'll just shrink it. But if you see, if I hover on something, this is the hero section. So if I scroll down, see when I hover, it's only selected the top bit, the hero section. If I select the next bit, that's only the next part, and I'll just show you that that ends there so you understand, and then the next part, and next part. So if I just show you, this one's a good example. So you see the yellow part there? That's margin on the page. So actually you can see that they're different colors. So it looks like a mistake, to be honest with you. So that'll be something that I'll need to correct. But that is because the inside bit is styled with a white background, and the body is styled. So you can see the body here. Here's the body. So this has a background color on it, which is grey, and everything else is styled. And this one here has got a margin on it. So the width is only, the bits with the yellow are basically see-through, got some margin, and the other bits have a background color. So you can see the background colors here. So even if I wanted to mess around as a designer, I could mess around and see, like, change the color of it. I won't. I'll put it back to how it was. Um, but that's how you see. So the first thing to know is that my screen has a certain width, and the browser's filled up 100% of it. So if it was a wider screen, it would fill up 100% of that, and that's where your breakpoints come in. So nowadays, it's not uncommon that you'd access a website on a TV or something, a smart TV, in which case the screen would be, this is a 4K screen, but this is not as big as a TV. Well, it's maybe as big as a small one, but a smart TV now, 50-inch or something like that, would be completely different, and there's probably a breakpoint for it. But if I show you, I can show you, I can bring the website in slowly, and you can see at some point, you see that snap? That was a breakpoint, and so you can see downtime actually comes out. So the text needs to be smaller on that breakpoint, and then I go a bit smaller there. And now you can see again, there's another problem here because it goes on top of the text, and then here comes down and it fits in nicely. But this now has a problem because it's the wrong color. And so you can see how you can see there's a lot of errors, but you can also see how the breakpoints work and how they snap. So in this particular instance, we're trying to make this image fit a bit better. So what we actually need to understand is that, first of all, the image, I only want it to be as wide as the image. I want it to blend into the red still, but I don't need an image that's the full width of this. So my designer's initial reaction was to make the image blend in, but also be the full width. So he wants to know how wide should I make the red part? And I say we don't want to make the red part wide because we want to control the background color with the color of the element, the div or the container, the section or whatever. And that way, if we ever need to change it, we can change the background color. And it also means that if we ever need to change the image to another page without a red background, we could do. In this instance, it won't work because we're blending it. In other pages, I can show you, maybe I'll show you the home page. So you can see this image here is an SVG. So I've told him, don't apply the yellow background, and that will mean we can use it on other pages. And that we just apply the background color with CSS, and that will mean that the image does not have such a big size, because otherwise it's going to have a really big background with a color on it. Even though it's an SVG, that will make it a bigger image size, and we could reduce that and use CSS, and the same effect will be achieved with a much less loading time. So just going back to this page, so this is a JPEG, so it's slightly different, but he wants to know how big to make it, and the first thing is the hero block is full width, but actually we don't really need it to be full width. We could put it within the container. So now the thing to understand is that although it's the width of the The container is not the width of the page. So again, you're seeing that yellow block either side, which is the margin. It looks slightly different because it's got a yellow background and it's see-through. But you can see it's got margin on it. So if we look somewhere, we would see the margin, I imagine. So here's the width basically, 75 rem, and the margin is not auto, which basically means it's centered. So if I take that off, it won't be centered. And if I change this, obviously, it would be 100% width or something. But what he now needs to know potentially is how wide is this central column rather than how wide is the main column. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, yeah, you can see on the screenshot, it's actually telling me it's 1200 and it's 700 tall. We'd never worry about the height so much in websites because we can scroll on them, so the height doesn't ever have to be fixed. It's not like a printed media where you have a fixed A4 page or something. Then you'd worry about that. And in this case, the height of this container will be different on a mobile and on a desktop. So we don't worry about height so much as we used to for printed media. But the main thing is he would understand it's 1200 wide, so he could supply this image at the right kind of size for a 1200, and then he might supply different sizes depending on other views, basically other sizes. So that's really all I wanted to discuss, is how I understand the sizing of things, and it's using this inspect element. So if I want to know how wide this is, I'd right click on that particular element and inspect it, so it automatically selects the right one. Now if I hover on it, I can see that it's 522 pixels. You don't normally work in precise pixels because you like to do things in a way that they can expand and contract. So if I shrink this window and that block becomes a bit smaller, it shouldn't mean that it just holds its size. It should mean that it reduces slightly too, usually. So we don't normally work in exact pixels, but it still can be helpful to understand that sort of thing. And every now and then, normally I don't need to worry about these things, but every now and then I might get my ruler tool out and I might just measure that. So that's an add-on to the browser that I've got. So I might just say, like, how tall is the B, for example. That would be something that wouldn't come up in inspect element, and I can see it's 46 pixels. So it might be that I need an image 46 pixels next to it or something like that. So the font's actual size, literal size, wouldn't normally work like that. If I inspect it, it'll tell me, let's get rid of the ruler. It'll tell me the line height sometimes. So in this case, it's 1.3, which is again not that helpful. And if I look on the computed part, it tells me it's 83.2 px, which is also not helpful because you can't have 0.2 of a pixel. A pixel is the smallest unit on the screen. So the smallest is 1, obviously, or 0. But you can't have a half pixel because the screen is made up of pixels. So the screen cannot have, which are basically little lights of different colors to make what you see. So in this case, it's a 4K screen, so there'll be 4,000 pixels, so 4,000 little lights that will tell you, change colors to show you what you want. So we can't have half a little light, right? It doesn't make sense. So you can't have half a pixel. But this one's saying 83.2 pixels line height, and as we just saw, the actual letter wasn't. Do you know what? Actually, let's do a different example of one that's on a single line. That's on a double line. So we could see the line height is 46.8, but if I measure the letter, we'll see that it's in fact 28 or something. So what that means is that the font size is 36. That's really what you want to look at, is the font size, sorry, 36, and it's actually only 28. So when we look at it and inspect it, what we'll see is the blue section either side of it. So even though it's kind of 36 pixels, it's only really 28 because it has a little gap above and below it, and then it also has the line height of 46, which is why you're seeing quite a bit more blue space. It's not quite tight on the text, but a font normally has a little bit of space around it anyway, and then you could potentially add padding as well. But that might be why you use a ruler measurement, but generally I probably would inspect 90% of what I do nowadays. Even images, you can find that out. Anyway, I hope that helps. This is how I made this to communicate with my designer, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of graphic designers out there who are asking these sorts of questions and trying to understand, how do I know how wide it is? What size should I make the image? Because In print design, you do have a finite size. You don't have a scalable A4 page in a magazine. It's just A4. And if you then have to make an advert for different things, you might say I've got an A4 and then I've got a printed A4 inside of it, or I've got an advert which is a half page, which will be a certain amount, or this I've also got to have an internet banner advert, in which case then they're in set sizes, so you get set sizes. So it's really confusing from a designer to move to like a digital media where things are scaling all the time and moving to get your head around it. So hopefully this helps designers to understand really simply how to inspect a page and work out the maximum width that they'll be looking at and stuff like that. So in this case, how to work out the maximum width of the column, which will expand if the screen does. If I had a bigger screen, it'll be wider, but also the inner main part, um, the container in this case, as you hover on them, you'll be able to see them. So you can see in this case, when I hover on this one's full width, and the next one has got the margin. So then I know that's actually the content part that I'm working with. So I hope that helps, and I might release some more of these tips. If anyone likes it, please leave a comment. Please ask some questions. How do I know this? How do I know that? It's something that I am keen to help my designer with, so I'm happy to help others at the same time. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe.